Good evening. Welcome to the February 9th Northampton School Committee Student Advisory Council meeting. I'm Mayor Jean Louise Scherer, the Chair of the School Committee, and I will be presiding this evening. This meeting is being held both remotely on Zoom pursuant to the modifications of the state's open meeting law for the pandemic and in person here in the community room at JFK Middle School. This meeting and all participating will be audio and video recorded, and I will begin by asking the clerk to please call the roll of the school committee.
Mayor Shara?
Present.
Member Robbins?
Is she here with us yet?
Oh, we got two people coming on.
That's me.
Member Gazy? Here. Member Seraphy Cox?
Present.
Member Stein? I don't see Member Stein yet. Member Levy?
Present.
Member Miller?
Present.
Member Goldman?
Present.
Member Agna?
Present.
And Member Davis?
Present.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And there are two members who are participating remotely, and that is Member Gwen Agna and Member Emily Seraphy Cox. Okay. And sorry, I'm trying to find the agenda. I just had it. I've lost it. Here we go. So we'll welcome Lila, and you have a presentation of new semester developments.
Yeah, so could I share my screen? Or no?
I think so.
No, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh. I'm sorry, I have to make everybody photos. Let me do that. You should be able to share now.
Okay. I don't know how this works. Should I just is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's, Gwen, I'm sorry, Member Agna, can you hear Lila? I think you're good.
I'm good.
Who's gonna help you?
Thank you. Okay, cool. So, Evelyn, who's the student rep, should be joining us soon, but I'm just going to start this presentation. So, pretty much, the new semester started a couple weeks ago at the high school, and there have been some changes that have been implemented. So I'm just going to kind of review these changes and talk to you about how they've kind of been received by the school community, and then take any questions that you guys have about these changes. So the changes that we've seen have been that when Principal Worley came, we got like a standardized hall pass system. We had these like orange passes on lanyards, and students would have to sign out and sign in, or the teacher would sign them out and sign in. They would take a hall pass. They would have under 10 minutes to go to the bathroom or do whatever they needed to do, and then they would return. Students couldn't leave unless there was like an emergency, obviously, without one of these orange hall passes. And if a student was caught in the hall without a hall pass, there would be various degrees of repercussions for that. So, but then when the new semester started, the passes were limited to one per classroom. And the time out, I believe, was limited from 10 minutes to 5 minutes per student. So as you can imagine, probably students haven't been super happy about these changes. And the Student Union Cabinet had actually had a discussion with Principal Worley. Actually, I should probably go to this slide about this. Yeah. Okay. So the Student Union Cabinet had actually had a discussion with Principal Worley about this, where we had suggested the idea of having kind of a more proportionate hall pass system, because even with 2 passes, students had sometimes had to wait for a pass to come back to use the bathroom. So we had thought of the idea of like having more passes for classes with more kids and fewer passes for classes with less kids, just because it doesn't really make sense to have the same amount of passes for a class with like 30 kids and a class with like 15 or whatever. So anyways, we were a little bit confused about that, and especially the 5 minutes is a little bit concerning, especially because students that have to use gender-neutral bathrooms have to travel farther through the school, and 5 minutes is a little bit unreasonable to expect somebody to go sometimes like 2 floors, use the bathroom, and come back in time. Yeah. So, Evelyn, do you have anything to add to that? Do you want? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it was confusing when we had a conversation about how we should have more passes if there's a class with more students, and then it was cut to 1. And the 5 minutes, I've heard a lot of people talk about how it's a very unreasonable time.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Sure. So I heard from a friend who heard from a teacher about this, but previously with standard-based grading reassessments, the highest grade you would get would be counted as the grade that goes into OTIS and counts. So if you retook a developing, which would be a 75, to get a proficient, which is a 95, you would automatically have that 95 in OTIS. But they've now added that reassessments will be average. So, example, if you reassess from a developing to a proficient, it'd be an 85 instead of a 95, which some people think that contradicts the point of standard-based grading, because standard-based grading is showing how, what you were talking about this, how you like.
Yeah, so some people have felt that, like, you know, the object of standards-based grading is all about improvement, and all about, like, learning from your mistakes and being assessed based on your current knowledge, not, like, how you did in the past. And so I think this was a little bit confusing for some people, especially just most things about standards-based grading have been confusing just because of how it's been communicated to students. But this has just become a little even more like foggy, I guess, about, you know, what the point of this grading system that we're all having to like constantly change to accommodate is. But I think that the idea is that some people have also been concerned about like grade inflation, and so averaging the assessment and reassessment puts less weight on a reassessment, and therefore if you do badly initially, like you don't study, then you're not gonna do your best in the end. So there are two sides of that. But another thing about this, as maybe was apparent from how Evelyn found out about this, is that it wasn't communicated really to the student body. Some teachers just happened to mention it, which is how people found out. But in Hello Hamp, maybe the week after the start of the semester, something mentioned it. Hello Hamp is like the school-wide newsletter. But there was a little bit confusion about that. So that's just something to note.
Yeah, same thing with the passes and the 5 minutes. I mean, I didn't really have any teachers tell me about it. I just saw that there was one pass, and there was no communication beforehand with the passes. So that was also kind of confusing for some people.
Yeah.
So we found out on, what day did we start using this? Monday? On Monday that we switched from
A program called Enriching
enriching students.
to a program called MyFlex Learning. Enriching Students was a little bit problematic because it didn't connect to Aspen. So Aspen is the program that we use for taking attendance. And so Flex, students weren't really like in charge of their time during Flex, and teachers didn't know where students were sometimes. And so MyFlex Learning connects directly to Aspen, so that like now you have to go to Flex and you can't just kind of like be anywhere during that time. Otherwise, it'll be the same as if you miss a class.
Yeah.
Nothing to add.
We have a bathroom equity subcommittee in the student union, and for the last around 2 months, I'd say 2 or 3 months, we had been working on getting menstrual products into the bathrooms. It was, at the time, we can't put them into the main bathrooms in the school, the girls' or boys' bathrooms, since we don't have a we don't have data backing which bathrooms need more supplies, and once we get that, we can. But until then, we decided to put them in the gender-neutral bathrooms, which is just a neutral place that anyone can go. So we had a fundraiser by selling candy grams, and we made over $300, and with the money, we were able to buy like hundreds of products, a lot of products, and we have the gender-neutral bathroom stocked for a long time. And then we also have excess products that are being stored in the lending library, which is a place where anyone in the school can go, and it has like products like menstrual products, dental hygiene stuff like that. So it's been great.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that is that we are super excited about being able to supply students with these essentials, but we do feel like there needs to be a more long-term solution for the fact that these aren't accessible to students without, us or like whomever supplying them. So I think we heard at some point that there was money maybe allocated in the budget, but it was kind of unclear, and maybe it was somebody's job, but people didn't know. So we're looking into like how we can make this like more systemic
Yeah.
and not just like, here and there we kind of patch the holes.
Yeah, because we don't want to have to like not have products after having them for months, because that would be, I'm sure, hard on people.
Okay, so that is the end of kind of all of the changes that have come with the new semester, and we would love to hear your questions, comments, everything.
Thanks.
Where is the lending library located?
It is in Yamira's office at the school.
And also in the actual library, there's like a closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, is it easy for people to just go into it without anybody,
Yeah, I'd say I've been in there. I say if you haven't heard about it, it'd be a little hard to find. So I think we should make sure, start advocating for the lending library to make sure everyone knows about that too, so we could have an announcement about that or something. That's definitely something we've looked into in the past too. But if you know where it's easy to get in there, and it's easy to take stuff.
Other questions or comments?
One has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Member Agna.
She's muted.
You're muted.
No, am I muted? No, I'm
You're
not, sorry.
How's that?
So, thank you for this. It's very informative. It makes us feel like we're in the high school and all the things you're having to deal with. A minor thing, but it may not be so minor. I thought the health department provided period products and other things. At least that's what happened in the elementary schools. And there never seemed to be any need to have a fundraiser for them. So I'm just wondering about that, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn about what's in the budget for health, but.
I'm pretty sure there is a budget, and it goes to the nurse's office.
Uh-huh.
So those products that are in the nurse's office, it's just inconvenient to have to walk from maybe even like a third floor bathroom all the way to the nurse's office. And
Right.
also if you do, I'm pretty sure there's not that much in the nurse's office. There's not enough to stock the bathrooms, which is why we created this fundraiser. So we have enough to actually put in the bathrooms.
Well, I guess I would hope that you wouldn't have to do a fundraiser for this, and let us know if we, since we do have a job to look at the budget, if we need to think about that as we review the budget.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
we would definitely appreciate having a budget
Yeah.
item for this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Gazy.
Thank you for that presentation. Did you say that you met with Principal Worley about the hall pass situation?
Yeah, so before the hall pass, this new hall pass like system was implemented, we met with him about the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And have you met with him since it came in to
No.
tell them that it might be helpful to have another? I'm surprised he's not here on the Zoom when his SAC is presenting. But you might want to talk to him again and say, you know, any system, when you're putting in a new one, has its, you know, might need tweaking one way or another. And perhaps you can work something out to, especially with the people who have to traverse long passes. And did you actually get more for the larger classes? Is that, no?
No, so our idea after so first, a system where there were 2 hall passes per classes, 2 hall passes per class happened. And after that happened, we met with Principal Worley and said that it might be preferable to have a more proportionate, like, hall pass system, so that there were, like, more hall passes for larger classes and maybe fewer for smaller classes. And after that meeting, the system was changed so that there was only 1 hall pass per class.
Sorry.
So we were just a little confused about that.
Me too.
But we definitely will be meeting with him again to ask about that and see if we can come to kind of a conclusion that works better for people.
Great. I appreciate your advocacy on this matter.
I think we're also having assemblies per grade, right? There's a senior one today, so it's going senior, junior, and we'll have 2 next week too. But I think that's also going to be a time for students to ask questions. So maybe there'll be questions about this too. We can hear those.
Member Davis.
Hi there. Thank you very, very much. I have a question regarding the reassessment business that you talked about. I mean, it sounds like you have you've gained, people have gained a better understanding about the idea of standards-based grading, that, you know, that you can reassess because now I've learned, I've figured it out. So, but you mentioned that, but then there are some folks that maybe are worried about the grade inflation, and that maybe averaging takes the wind out of that. It feels, I mean, I would love to hear more about what that's about, because that's sort of, it feels to me like that the people that sort of got it right the first time know more and deserve the higher grade than someone who needed another 2 weeks to go back and get help and take it again. Is that the idea, or?
With the new, with the new reassessment?
Yeah, with the
because-
averaging the two together.
Yeah,
That's something I'm wondering about.
I would say, yeah, I
What's
think
the reasoning you think?
I think it's just because of how many people are getting or have 4.0s right now. It's just,
Oh.
since this, a 75 is automatically a 95 in Otis, it's just bumping up so many people's grades that they just want to figure out a way to cut it down without taking away standard-based grading. So I think that was the knowledge behind it.
we are speculating a little bit here, but my understanding is that, yeah, I think that, like, kind of what you were saying, maybe that people that got a higher grade the first time deserve that more, or, like, have better overall knowledge,
Uh-huh.
which isn't necessarily true, because somebody can work really hard between an initial assessment and a reassessment.
Right.
To gain more knowledge. And so I think it's just what we've been dealing with standards-based grading throughout its implementation, which is that there isn't a super solid understanding of the purpose of standards-based grading, or the theory behind it, but it is a reality for us right now, and
Yeah.
so we have to kind of deal with, you know, having a real grading system while also, like, trying to have an ideal grading system, and those things aren't really matching up. And there also hasn't been a lot of communication about it for teachers, so teachers also don't always know what's going on with that, and they are doing professional development on that. But it's just tricky, I think, because it was just implemented so suddenly without education about it. And obviously, we've been through a few administrations since. And so there isn't really a systemic
Yeah.
foundation.
I mean, I think that there was an effort to put a number that people are used to
Yes.
on a grade,
Right.
even though that's sort of not really what it,
Exactly. That's not the point. Yeah.
that a 95 isn't really what standard-based grading, and so that is tricky, so I give you credit for trying to deal. And also, can I just add one little thing? In going around to various colleges with my own student, and something that came up, I think, last spring was, do other colleges understand what's happening here? And what I heard repeatedly from admissions people was, they see everything, because they have homeschool kids that apply to college. They have kids that went to high school internationally that have different things. And so we were reassured, don't worry, we get it. People go to all kinds of schools, and so it'll be okay. That's what we were reassured.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have a question about something that you didn't present about tonight, but you've presented about in the past. You've talked a lot about like mental well-being of students at the high school, and I'm just curious how, what your, I don't remember, I think you had a committee specifically dealing with that, so if there's anything related to that, or if just you have any kind of insight about how things are going for students at the school, or also if y'all are doing anything related to that.
I would say that that's a really hard thing for us to quantify or even like qualify. We haven't, held student forums recently on that topic specifically. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like my personal opinion, or even Evelyn's, isn't really helpful on that, just because, we're talking to our friends, but not the whole school. We have been working on this survey, which I think we presented on at the last SAC presentation, that maybe has a question or two about that. But I think generally, being farther from the chaos of COVID, generally speaking, has been good. I can say that. And I feel like there's been kind of a steady rhythm in the school for a little while now, and that's been really settling. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's helpful. Did you have something like Wellness Wednesdays before? No? Maybe I'm remembering something that didn't exist. I thought that you had some sort of effort related to wellness. So I apologize for putting you on the spot.
No.
That's okay.
We had a mental health day. It was just one day
Gotcha.
during hybrid school maybe. And we were talking a little bit about that at some point. So that might be what you're thinking of. But yeah, it's hard to get a day off of school. And I haven't felt there's been an overwhelming need for that. But I don't know. I'm not a professional, so I can't really say anything about that besides what I've said.
But do we have mental health questions in the survey?
I think we do, yeah.
If with that information, we could assess like, oh, do we need to do something for the mental health of the students? So we could plan something in the future with the data that we get from the survey.
Thanks so much.
Okay, any other questions or comments for students? No? All right, well, thank you, as always, for being here. We really appreciate it. It was good to see you both. Thanks. Okay, so we need to adjourn this meeting and start the next meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Davis, seconded by Member Gazy. When you're ready.
I think that you told me is Member Robbins coming tonight?
I see Member Robbins.
I see her name on there.
Member Robbins? If you're with us?
Yeah, I'm here, sorry. I'll start my video in a minute.
Okay. Member Gacy?
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Do we have Member Stein?
I don't think so.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Goldman?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Shara?
Yes. Okay, we are adjourned, and we are going to start the regular school committee meeting. Dave, you don't need to count me down, right? No. Okay, all right. Then, good evening. Welcome to the February 9th Northampton School Committee meeting. I'm Mayor Jean Louise Shara, the Chair of School Committee, and I will be presiding this evening. This meeting is being held both remotely on Zoom pursuant to the modification of the state's open meeting law for the COVID-19 pandemic and in person here in the community room at JFK Middle School. This meeting and all participating will be audio and video recorded. I will begin by asking the clerk to please call the roll of the school committee.
Member Gazy? Present. Member Seraphy Cox?
Present.
Member Stein, still no Member Stein. Member Levy?
Present.
Member Goldman?
Present.
Member Miller? Member Agna?
Present.
Member Davis?
Present.
Mayor Shara?
Present.
And Member Robbins? I know that Member Robbins is here.
She just got kicked out, but I think she's
Oh.
coming back in.
There she is, okay. I see her.
Okay. So the following members are participating remotely. That's Member Agna, Member Seraphy Cox, and Member Robbins. And we are recording. Yes. Okay, first on the agenda is public comment. And there's nobody in the audience here at the moment, so there's nobody here in the room for public comment, but I'll take a moment and see if I see any hands on the Zoom. Seeing none, we will move to the next item, which is any announcements from the school committee. Announcements, yes. Member Goldman.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a formal announcement that I won't be seeking reelection in the fall, so this will be my last year in my second term. And that's all. Thank you.
We're sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Member Agna.
I'd just like to give a shout out to Senator Jo Comerford for her proposed legislation to not have MCAS be a graduation requirement and looking at some of the other aspects of MCAS. And I have gotten in touch with her and told her that if there's anything we can do as far as elected officials in the community to help this legislation get forwarded and get passed, that we would like to be counted on that. I hope I'm speaking for everyone, but perhaps not. But anyway, for me, it's very exciting to think about over these many, many years of dealing with not just the MCAS, but also the fact that it has prevented some students from graduating or it's made it more difficult. And we are only 5 states in the country that have a graduation requirement for a state test. So thank you, Senator Comerford.
Okay, Okay, thank you, Member Agna. Member Levy?
Thanks. Thank you, Member Goldman, for your service. And I know you're not done yet. I want to thank folks at the Collaborative for facilitating our second retreat that was held last night. And for those of you in the public, the school committee gathered to do some work on thinking about hiring practices and inclusive hiring practices and how to improve upon the last round of hiring that we underwent. And I want to thank my colleagues for being open and vulnerable and sharing. I think there is a lot more processing for us and work to do together, but it was a really fantastic start. So thanks to everybody for that.
Okay. Any other announcements from the school committee? Seeing none. What's that? Yeah, but I don't no longer do
Oh, there's one.
so it's not a school committee member.
No.
So Jennifer, did you miss public comment? Here, you can unmute.
So I was having trouble with my computer, so I wasn't able to get to it
Okay.
quickly. Can I still have 5 minutes of your time? Or a few minutes, please?
I think it's 3 minutes.
Or 3 minutes,
Yeah.
please?
Sure, go ahead, please.
My name is Jennifer Hayden. I am from Florence, and I appreciate everyone's time. I know it's on the agenda, but I am hoping that we could find funds and devote time to the anti-racist and our anti-hate symbol, anti-hate speech policy. I know that there's supposed to be 2 people in each building trained to be doing restorative practices. And I am hoping that we're able to continue forward this policy because it's really important. And I just wanted to say that. So thank you.
Thank you. That wasn't even 1 minute. Thank you. Okay, so if there are no further announcements or comments, we will move on to recommended actions, and these are the items which we will vote for by consent unless there is a removal. So the items are meeting minutes from school committee meeting November 10th, 2022, and the full school committee meeting December 12th, 2022. Acceptance of a field trip, a Northampton High School Model UN Club to Cambridge. This is for February 10th through the 12th. And acceptance of a donation, National Grid, to support the robotics team in the amount of $5,000. And those are the recommended actions. Any removals? Member Levy?
I don't have a removal per se, just a request. I don't want to have to vote twice, but my name's not spelled correctly in the minutes. Just
Oh.
wanted to update that.
Okay, which one?
Which
I
one?
don't remember. I'm looking now in.
I think I saw that and fixed one of them. I might have missed another
Okay, you
one.
might have fixed it already. It was sort of further down. It was spelled L-E-V-Y instead of L-E-V-I.
All right.
Okay.
I will fix that. I will find it and fix it.
Thank you.
Okay, Scrivener's error. Any other comments? Then if there are none, roll.
To accept the
Yes, thank you.
consent agenda?
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Gazy, seconded by Member Levy. Roll call, please.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Yes.
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
And Member Gazy.
Yes.
Do we have Member Stein?
I don't see Member Stein.
Okay.
Annie, just as a FYI, it's in the November 10th minutes,
Okay.
under section 3, recommended actions.
Okay, I will fix that one.
Thanks.
Okay, that passes, and we can move on to reports and recommendations. And let's see, there's no report for rules and policy. So first up is superintendent evaluation and Member Levy.
Thanks. So our committee met last week to discuss understanding of the process for supporting an interim superintendent. We were very ambitious and together with Dr. Pearson Campbell, put together a set of very robust goals for the year. And in my meetings with Dr. Pearson Campbell, it became clear very quickly that in an interim role, it's not actually feasible to address those types of goals, that her role is really to keep us afloat. And so our subcommittee met to discuss the change, the shift, so that we can ensure we are doing all we can to support the work of Dr. Pearson Campbell. And as you all may recall, it was the recommendation of MASC to not have goals and evaluate an interim superintendent. So our work as a subcommittee will be to continue to meet with Dr. Pearson Campbell and ensure that we are supporting her and giving feedback as appropriate. But we will also bring, or I will bring, I hope we, the three of us, will bring the work that we did to put together those goals and thinking through what it is that we think superintendents need to be thinking about to the rubric designed for our search for a new superintendent, because I think what we did was we uncovered a lot of our priorities for the role. So questions? Anything y'all want to add?
Okay. Thank you, Member Levy. Moving on to budget and property, and Member Goldman.
Thank you. Let's see what's happening there. We have some items here. Superintendent Pearson Campbell, do you want to mention anything about the school budgets or the process going forward?
Yes, tomorrow will be a press release. February 28th will be a special meeting regarding our school budget, so that everyone can hear the 23 to 24 budget as during that time. We're almost done with the first draft, so we'll be sharing that to the community.
Thank you. So the budget process is going really well, I think. I'm really enjoying the adjustments that Superintendent Pearson Campbell and Bobby have made this year. And the other update is the start time survey that was distributed to caregivers, staff, and students. We received over 1,300 responses from staff and caregivers, and we received, about 650 responses from students thus far. And so I'll be meeting with, this is still on the budget committee's plate, so we'll be taking a look and compiling the data, and also wanting to continue to keep Transportation Director Lieber in the loop, who has a lot to contribute to the conversation about start time. And so we'll continue to provide updates as they come. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Levy?
Thanks for that update. One of the things that we did with that survey was we collected demographics. And one of the reasons we wanted to collect demographics was to be able to assess the representative, or how representative the respondents are of the general community. And so that we could think about whether there were any outreach or targeted outreach efforts that needed to be done. And I'm wondering if you all have had an opportunity to look at those demographics yet, or if not, if maybe you could so that we could think about, I'm assume the survey is still open,
Yes.
so that,
It is.
okay, great. So is there, do you have you looked at demographics? And if not, might you, so that we can think about targeted outreach?
Absolutely, yeah. That is one of the stages of interpreting, working with the data and setting it up. We're looking at some of, key pieces about it, and demographics are definitely an important part of that. I also find it, I feel very strongly about making sure that that's collected. And so next week, we have our budget meetings. We'll be able to sort of get a grasp of all of the information and make sure we're doing outreach as needed, which is something that's also important to Superintendent Pearson Campbell. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, could you remind me if the survey was distributed to just the high school, or if it was the high school and the middle school both?
It was distributed to both the high school and the middle school. We sent out, there's 2 different surveys. One for students and one for staff and caregivers. And the student one was distributed in schools to JFK students and high school students.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none. You made it through all of your
Yes,
points?
yes, thank you.
Great. Next, Curriculum Subcommittee, Member Robbins.
Thank you. There should be a folder in your folder that was presented to us at the last curriculum subcommittee by curriculum director Roxanne Dory. But I think the work that's been happening in the district is so relevant to what we all as caretakers and as representatives want to know about. So I'm going to detail a little bit, having checked in with Roxanne about making sure we are accurate in that. So very quickly, the new K-8 math programs, Bridges and Illustrative Math, are being implemented district-wide. We heard from Roxanne, and the Ameswood local benchmark assessment scores this winter compared to fall scores look very promising, which is exciting. Teachers are reporting that they're seeing wonderful results in student achievement as well. The JFK math and special education teachers are finishing up their AVMR fractions course with math coach Diana Smith and a second AVMR numeracy course. This is something that Desi has sent to us to take, and there was some hesitancy about starting it, but teachers seem to find it actually is serving them well. The JFK math and special education teachers are finishing that. There's another one planned for new elementary teachers and teachers who didn't participate last year, which is great. We always think about how we're going to bring new hires on board with programs that were implemented before they got here. The goal is to have all elementary teachers of math trained. The high school math teachers are participating in a book study with Tara Brandt through Mount Holyoke, and will all receive copies of Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics grades K through 12. Roxanne has provided PD and a template for the new Google Doc K through 12 math maps, and the teacher curriculum developers are getting real-time feedback through editing and suggestion tools. The new maps will be complete by June, and PDFs will be posted to the district website so we can all see them. The goal is to eventually replace $10,000 per year Atlas curriculum map storage subscription and move to a shared district-owned map storage. And this is something we knew was going to be required by some changes in the district, and this seems to be an implementable plan. In ELA, the Vertical Reading Literacy Team, also known as the ELA Curriculum Council, also DESI Grant Implementation Purpose, continues to meet and has drafted a district literacy vision statement, which is absolutely gorgeous, and I completely recommend people having a look at it. In addition, the team has set parameters and priorities based on survey results from teachers as to what the most important qualities to look for are in a potential new K through 5 literacy program, which is the next rollout that we will have in the 5-year plan. In addition, the team has set parameters and priorities based on survey results from teachers as to what the most important qualities to look for in a potential new K through 5 literacy program. And Roxanne has written a grant which is Fund Code 161, and has been awarded to Northampton to support this work through teacher stipends and also to secure related professional development and $5,000 worth of sample materials for the team to look through and trial this spring. Caregivers will be part of the selection process after the team narrows down the selection to 3. Leeds Elementary School is piloting teacher-selected N-class early literacy screener this spring. The results will be shared district-wide. Roxanne has written almost $1 million worth of grants for this district. The specifics are available. All of these grants require ongoing curriculum work and follow-through and mandatory attendance to DESE meetings in order to meet each goal's objective. Roxanne attends all of these meetings to represent the district. It completes ongoing mandated paperwork and all the related meetings and stuff that goes with that. It was a very impressive presentation, and I really suggest folks open that folder and have a look at the PowerPoint Roxanne provided for us. In addition, we heard as well from teaching members of our community about their serious concerns about implementation of our anti-bias policy. Superintendent Pearson Campbell said she will share and discuss this with her administrative team at their next meeting and take responsibility for moving forward with this critical work. And that's our report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Member Robbins?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Thank you for all that information. Can you clarify, is the bridges and illustrative math, they're being piloted or they're being done at the same time? Those are two totally different, is one for the older grades and one for the younger?
Yeah,
Okay.
one is for the older grades, and they were piloted last year, so now they have a district implementation. So this is the first year that teachers have really all had their hands on with it and are getting all the training with it. But it's gotten really good feedback, and it looks like the kids are doing well with it. The great thing about it is that it's a differentiated program, and it gives a lot of options for teachers to pull from.
Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Member Robbins. And we are moving to G, which is the Ad Hoc Exit Interview Subcommittee, and I see Lena Patel is here. Hi, Lena.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Welcome.
My name is Lena. Good to see you all. I teach fifth grade at Ryan Road, and I'm the chair of the Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Exit Interviews. We've met a couple of times since I reported at the last school committee meeting and gotten some really good work done. We've been working to compile some examples of exit interviews in other schools. Head of HR Glenda Stoddard has shared some examples from her colleagues in Somerville, Woonsocket, Worcester, the Tri-Town School Union of Boxford, Middleton, and Topsfield, charter public school as well. We're continuing to think about what it means to reduce barriers to participation for people completing exit interviews, finding ways to allow compensation or paid time to complete exit interviews, thinking about measures for success. And one big theme, I think, as we've been exploring this topic more is realizing that we might need some help with it and wanting to really think carefully and intentionally about what it would look like to really implement an exit interview process in the district in a way that would be sustainable and really provide useful data for years to come, because the effects will really be cumulative as we go. We heard a presentation from Christine Dutton, an HR consultant of Dutton Consulting, who is offering her services in collaboration with us as a district to develop an exit interview tool and evaluate data. So we heard from her in our last meeting, and we'll be voting on whether we as a subcommittee recommend seeking her services. We have one more meeting scheduled officially as an ad hoc group, and during that time we'll be kind of compiling our final recommendations. And one other topic that we're thinking about is whether the work that this group is doing might need to continue to be sustained as we think about ways to continue to revisit exit interview data and continue to hone our tool and make it work for the district. That's my short summary, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Member Robbins.
I will just add that it was a really enlightening discussion with Christine, and we talked a lot about offboarding as well. So what Lena talked about in terms of if we sustain the work, well, how will we do that within our district? And we had a very good discussion about how that might those skills that Christine would share with us might be ones that really empower our administrators to be able to do this work themselves within schools, which was an exciting prospect. And I'm going to just say again that the committee is a great committee. We have Bill Deal on it as well, who's the former director of the collaborative, and his input's been wonderful. But Lena is a phenomenal facilitator. She really gets us where we need to go and provides us with the resources we need. And I'm just going to say again, thank you so much for putting the time and effort into this, Lena.
Thank you so much, Meg. I've been having such a pleasure working with all of you and bringing some of my lesson plan skills into the public meeting format too.
Thank you, Lena. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll say good evening to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Okay, that brings us to Bobby and her business administrator financial report. Good evening, Bobby.
Good evening. So my information is in the packet. As you can imagine, I've been pretty busy working with the budget for next year, but we are working on looking at this year as well and making sure we make any corrections that need to be made, such as if an account was charged incorrectly, and then also looking at payrolls and whatnot that are remaining for the rest of the year to what is actually left. I did include the warrants, which will now be included regularly, and then the personnel report is in there. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, I'm looking around. Anyone have any questions for Bobby? Okay. Seeing none, thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Dr. Pearson Campbell and the superintendent report. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to begin with the anti-racism policy implementation plan. And before we begin, we also, in our district, we have the anti-racist professional development training, the ABAR training. And so I really just want to focus on right now on implementation. And so one of the key things when I read over the policy was thinking about how do we implement it for this year and next year so everyone understands this is what we expect and that this is who we are. So the first thing is that the school handbook will be reviewed in order to update the various policies, such as the anti-racism policy, with the building principal and a team of building educators. As part of the opening of school and during open house, principals will have the opportunity to present and review the anti-racism policy. As a whole school opening, students and staff will review the anti-racism policy. In addition, building principals will identify 2 members of the building to be trained in restorative justice practices. The ALT team will then review data from each building to identify any incidents and provide professional development to members of the school community. So that's the first part. The second part of my report is also talking about the budget season. So we're currently working on the budget right now, like the thank Bobby and also to our alt team. We're really thinking of creative ways for next year. In addition to that, on February the 28th, we will be having a conversation regarding our budget for next year. So tomorrow will be a press release informing, we're having a Google link to inform the community when this will happen. Now, the last part of the report is snow days, and you want to know my process of snow days. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that I really take into a process before I cancel school or closure of school and early release. A number of our staff maybe come from the hill town, and sometimes when you think about our early releases, make sure our staff is being supported. So for same day events at 4:00 a.m., communication is made with the DPW, transportation supervisor, and superintendents. One thing I also learned about the history of the town, when it was an ice day, we want to think about the safety of the roads, so that if we have drivers, like our high school students, a lot of times our parents will call and say, I want to make sure that my child is safe coming, leaving school, or going to school. So we continuously monitor weather conditions. The superintendent makes the final decision about opening, closing, delaying. The superintendent will also connect building principals, athletic director, the after-school program. We will have a robocall, posting to local news channels, texts, and emails. Now, sometimes the storm happens various parts of the day, so we continue this process, but we continue monitoring the weather's conditions. We also understand that our community members, some maybe live in the town, but work in other places. So we also think about the parents from that. So as we go on, we continue a robocall, local news channel, text, and email regarding the closure of schools. So that's the snow days, the anti-racism report, and I know Candy would usually do the report, but she provided me her report for this year. February of this year, we have 10 positive cases and 12 tests formed in schools. So our numbers are pretty low right now. So this is just the first week of February. So we'll keep on collecting the data regarding our cases in school. And we'll keep monitoring because next week will be February vacation, and we'll keep monitoring as we go forward. And I know next week is going to be February vacation, so we do have COVID kits. So if you are traveling, each school has COVID kits if you want to pick it up from your principal or nurse so that you can test yourself before you come back to school. So that is my report.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson Campbell. Member Levy.
Thanks so much for that. Thanks so much for that report, Dr. Pearson Campbell. Sorry, there's a.
Is your microphone turned all the way down?
Oh, I unmuted myself. Thanks, sorry.
Unmute
It's
yourself,
like a
right.
habit when I see myself and I get called on, I hit unmute. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks for that report, Dr. Pearson Campbell. I have a few questions and just one comment. I just want to be really mindful when we are talking about policy ACF. Because we do have a commitment to anti-racism and we are doing ABAR work as a district. And at the same time, I just want to be clear that the policy ACF is really on discriminatory bias, which is part of anti-racism, but also broader. It encapsulates a whole host of identities. So as we're talking with our community and with our teachers, I think it's important to differentiate between our anti-racism work and the anti-bias work, which they go hand in hand, but aren't one and the same. The other piece, I have some questions for you about the weather-related school closures. So thank you again for your willingness to share with us. I know that was something that I had asked for at our last meeting. My first question is whether, and this is for folks in the community to have an understanding of a greater understanding of the process. Thank you for laying out what you did. Is there a threshold, and I understand if there's not, but I'm just curious if there's an amount of snow that tends to be like, once we get this amount of snow, we close, or is there any kind of a threshold so that families can have an understanding and predict a bit?
The number is 3, and also if it's ice, because sometimes you might not have snow, but you might have ice related, and so that could be the difficulty between the two.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful to hear. Is there a process, so I as a working family and with a lot of working families who I talk to, I appreciate the heads up in advance, because if school is going to be closed the next day, it's nice to be able to plan and try and scramble to get childcare with some advance notice. At the same time, I wonder, when we make plans or we make calls in advance, is there any then reconsideration as the clarity comes in about whether in fact what was predicted is going to pan out? So for example, if it sounds like there's going to be a horrific snowstorm and then it turns out there's 0 snowflakes that fall overnight, is there any process to reconsider decisions that have been made?
We do try to do that, but we also, one thing with technology, it tells you when the snow is going to hit. So, for example, it gives you the time, and so that's what we take into consideration regarding that. Because it gives you a weather forecast and saying, 8 to 9, you get 1 inches, 10 to 2, you get so many inches. So we have to think about when school, is dismissed. We also have to think about our high school drivers who are coming out, so figuring out what time they have to dismiss. And so it's really a big, it's almost like we have a sit down room where we figure out the best time for that. So it really takes the team to make that decision.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you. What I'm thinking about is not what's happening during the day, but perhaps overnight. So if a decision has been made to cancel school for the following day, and then overnight we check and it's updated and we learn actually there's no snow, but then school remains closed. Is there a process to reverse a decision once a decision has been made to close?
Yes, but I only closed one time, so I try to be very strategic of when I close the schools or half a day. And usually when it's a snow day, I usually do not sleep the night before. I'm talking with Tammy and I on the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're looking at the temperature, we're looking at the weather. So the day before a snowstorm, it's really, I'm up all night. Keeping an eye on the weather. And sometimes it could not be the area in Northampton. It could also be the area because some of our staff is coming from the hill country. So in order for our staff to come in safely, sometimes we might have to push school back for 2 hours so that our staff can be able to come down and support our schools. Because when our teachers are not able to come to school, we won't have subs. So sometimes that's the reason why I do a 2-hour delay, because I get the pictures from my staff saying this is what hill country is looking like. And then maybe in Northampton it's not snowing, but our staff is coming from a higher elevation. And that's why I really make, it's a really a tough call, because I want my staff to come be safe. At the same time, I want to open the schools.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. My last question is about, and this is something that I alluded to in our last conversation. It's a question about whether there's a partnership between the city and the schools, and whether there's any kind of prioritization of school bus routes when there are snowstorms or when there are anticipated snowstorms. I don't know if Dr. Pearson Campbell, or Mayor,
I'm happy to take that question, Dr. Pearson Campbell. So we have 160 miles of road and 5 trucks. And so there are priorities. So we always have to do the hills and the higher elevations first and the main roads, and then work to the other roads. So we don't plow. There's kind of a magic number for plowing too, which is 2 to 3 inches. You can't really plow until you hit that. But we do pre-treat for any possible ice that's going to happen. So that always happens the day before. So you hit those priority areas, and then you kind of work out to the other areas as well. And the DPW does know the bus routes and tries to get to them as soon as they've sort of hit those other kind of safety priorities also.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing
I
none.
think Member Stein's got it.
Oh, sorry, Member Stein?
Hi, thank you. Apologies for the late hand raise there. I just have a question. I was taking a look at the SHAC reporting data that we got, sort of this updated spreadsheet, and I didn't see, and I may have missed it, how many absences we had during January between students and staff. I don't know if you had that info, or if not, if we could get that after the meeting from Candy.
I can get that for you.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Member Gazy?
I think on that SHAC report, I noticed way at the bottom, there were tabs for different months because I was able to see December and January. So if you look down, you know, the report with all the red and blue bars, way down at the bottom left-hand corner, it says February, March, you know, January, February. So maybe you can see it there, Mike.
Thanks. Yeah, I took a look and it looks like we have, you know, the breakdown for the positive cases and then the by school and then the test performed by school, but we don't have the absentee data unless I'm missing it. So it looks like we had, doing some quick math, I don't know, 100 and something cases in January. And I don't know, 50 positive tests that were performed at school, but I don't see the actual absentee numbers. We got it last time, but I don't think it was built into this, but thanks for pointing that out, Holly.
I can have to do that the next time.
Okay, any other questions on superintendent report? Seeing none, let's move on to new business. So, Annie, I don't see Evelyn back yet.
Oh.
But we might be earlier than she anticipated.
Oh, we're a lot earlier than anticipated.
Yeah, so let's move on to Josh Dixon. And there's a vote to approve preschool fees. And there are two documents in there. Where's Josh? Hi, Josh. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. So I also, if you could unmute Laura Fragamini.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Laura.
So Laura's going to talk about both of the documents that were in your packet. So the memo related to the UMass collaboration with the Early Childhood Department, which we're very excited about, and then also the details related to the preschool fees.
Sure. So we are thrilled that Josh and I early in the school year met with the UMass Communications Disorders Department as well as their Sound Sticks Lab and their bilingual SLP professor. And so we're moving forward and looking at some systemic professional development in the future. But we started where the Early Childhood Center is hosting language and hearing screenings for all 4 to 6 year olds. Parents can elect to come in, but we're matching that with our kindergarten screening to create a more complete picture. So of course it's all on family consent, but we're hosting them on the 4th Thursdays. Another part of the collaboration is that we'll be hosting when children learn 2 languages. So we're starting with an in Spanish workshop. The professor, Megan Gross, will host families, and we're going to base it at Head Start, one of our other joyful collaborators. So at Head Start, families from all over the city will be able to come. The professor will meet with the parents, and SLPA students will be doing language activities with children. That will be held in Spanish. Head Start's providing dinner. And through another wonderful collaboration with the Northampton Education Foundation, we're purchasing $1,000 in books to be able to provide English-Spanish books, all on the same. So we are planning a subsequent one in English that will have interpreters for families who have other languages aside from Spanish. But collaboration is the key in early childhood. You know that we love the Department of Early Education and Care that collaborates with our DESE school district, our community-based partners who engage with us in working through itinerant services, and UMass is the latest amazing collaborator. Do you have any questions about that?
Laura, anyone have any questions for Laura? Yeah, Member Golan.
Actually, Member Agnew.
Okay, Member Agnew, you want to go first?
Sure, if that's okay. Laura, I think it's so exciting, Josh, too, about this collaboration that you're having around second language and learning in 2 languages. And I think that if it's possible for those families who have English speaking at home and are learning in 1 language to have some information about it too, because my experience had been that at a school where there were lots of second language learners, the first language, the English speakers didn't really understand quite how that happened and how it was that we did what we did in EL for the students. And sometimes it was fine that they didn't understand it, but sometimes they, it was a confusing thing for them to understand that these students would have, a different approach, or they would have different services. And I just would, if it's possible, with the collaboration with UMass, to have a way for English-speaking families to understand the language development that happens when you have a first language that's other than English at home.
Beautiful.
Thank
yes. you. Sounds great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Member Goldman?
Thank you, Director Dixon and Director Armini. Is the assessments that UMass is going to be doing, are those going to be in Northampton, or will they be in Amherst?
So we're going to host them at the Early Childhood Center. So on the 4th Thursdays of the month, you can sign up, and it's right on our website where you can do a QR code. The Early Childhood Center, through our grants with the Department of Early Education and Care and through collaboration, we're actually able to support Greater Northampton families for some of the things we do. The Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant is actually, we are contracted to support Northampton and Hadley families. We welcome, there's a workshop going on right now on redefining masculinity in the family, and another one at 8 o'clock with Chrissy D'Agostino on developing self-regulation in children. And those are, we've got folks coming from across the state to attend those, as well as a really healthy local contingent. So UMass will come over the bridge and do it here, but children can come from wherever.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Thank you. The idea of dual language development is near and dear to my heart, and for personal and professional reasons. And I'm curious what you see as the future for dual language support in our district. I just as a little bit of background of my personal experience, before I moved to Northampton, my daughter and I lived in San Diego, and she attended a dual immersion Spanish-English school. And one of the things that I really loved about that school was not only was it exposing her to, her own culture in a way that I, as a non-fluent speaker of Spanish, was unable to do, but also it was an opportunity for students for whom Spanish was their first language to be the experts in the class for a time, for half the day. And I really loved how that shifted dynamics in the classroom for the students. So that's just a little bit about my own experience, but my question for you is just what you see as the future of dual language development in our district, or what you would dream for us.
So I dream in early childhood, right? So that's the public preschool, and it's all of our community-based preschools. And it's hand in hand with the amazing work that Lauren Barry does, K to 12, right? So I'm just here and holding hands, and Lauren and I work closely together in the past few years on the Summer Step Up Grant, which created opportunities for our English language learners, which also, the way the grant was built, provided some funds to help pay for LHub. So we're working together and really leaning in, I'm learning from her. And also learning from the collaboration with Head Start, because they track all of their dual language learners and their learning. And so what Lauren and I have been working together on is we put into the CPPI grant this year just a 6-hour position for an LHub educator preschool version. And a young woman, Chloe Grubb-Salim, works with us, and Lauren has trained her on how to do the language screenings for preschoolers. And right now, Lauren is going to be meeting with all of our preschool partners, who I meet with all the time for our CPPI grant. So she's going to join us at a leadership team meeting and unpack how can we all have the same question on our enrollment forms that triggers the district home language survey. So looking at that alignment pre-K so that we're identifying students sooner and we're able to more forecast needs, budgets, programs. Many students make test out. And we're creating, again, like with UMass, if we do the home language survey with our community-based and our public preschools already do it, but also do it with our community-based preschools, there can be those two tracks, because in community-based preschools, there are Northampton residents, but also many folks come from outside of Northampton to send their kids to Smith School or Nonotuck or Meadowlark. So two tracks of how we can support resident students who are dual language learners and non-resident students, whether it's just by access to materials, survival words, and different strategies. We are in the beginning of our support and development of the dual language, modeling it on the great work that Lauren Barry's been doing for the district with ELF students.
And just to expand on that a little bit, one of the reasons that we started the partnership with UMass, and you'll hear more information about this sort of later in the spring, but Dr. Provost had talked about it briefly last spring around sort of our warning for disproportionality for identification of Hispanic students as having communication disabilities. And we happen to have been identified as at warning for a number of years, which has now caused us to be identified as significantly disproportionate. And so part of the work that we will aim to do and the planning that we will aim to do is really look at professional development for our staff around understanding dual language learners and partnering with not only the early childhood department, but also Lauren and her staff around how to sort of bring this to the forefront of all of our teachers and staff across the district so that we can support all of our learners to the best of our ability. So this is sort of one of the stepping stones of sort of building that connection as we look to strengthen not only our speech and language pathologists' understanding of evaluating students whose primary language is not English, but also furthering the strategies that our teachers can use within their own classrooms.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. That was really helpful for thinking about like where we're at and where we're going. I'll just put out there that if we think about English language learning and dual language support and that sort of thing as within the same department of of student services and kind of the idea of it as being a special service, that does it, not that we are purposefully making it so, but it does put it in kind of a special category. And I think just one of the things that I was wanting to express about my daughter's experience in early education was that that in some ways that the dual immersion helped to level the playing field so that we're not putting some students in a special category and other students not in a special category when there's, as you said, that it's not a disability. So that's obviously that would be a major transformation for the district, but just that's an experience from a parent anyway. Thank you.
Member Seraphy-Cox. Member Agna.
I just wanted to share my experience, Member Seraphy-Cox, having been in the district at a school that had a predominantly Spanish-speaking second popular, sorry, my brain is, it's like word retrieval. I worked under a superintendent who really wanted to have a dual language immersion, elementary school, and actually wanted to do it across the schools, but was starting with the school that I was the principal of. And we did a lot of research, and we know that it's a very, very valuable approach to learning for all students. And it also does level playing fields, and it elevates others who are often seen as having a problem because they don't speak English. The problem that we found was that it costs a lot of money. And Northampton, and the two factors, it costs a lot of money because you need 2 teachers for the class. And also, we didn't have enough students who spoke other than English. And you need to have an equal number so that you can have that kind of balance of language immersion. And it's really, we ended up doing a language sharing program, we called it, so that every other day for those teachers who were bilingual in the school did do Spanish morning meeting and things, but it was disappointing because we did a lot of work to look at it, and I know that Amherst has it, but Amherst also has more money than we have, so they have the teachers that you need. And you know, my own experience for my granddaughter, who lives in Peekskill, New York, she's in a language sharing or language immersion school, but she's in the minority as a person who speaks English as a first language, and there are over than 50% of the students in her school are Spanish speaking. So the factors don't quite fit for Northampton. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at it, and I agree with you. We need to dream in some ways that it's not just acquiring a second language that's so critical for our children, but also for elevating students who might otherwise not be or marginalized. So I'm glad that you're dreaming, Member Seraphy Cox.
And I think I need to clarify, so dual language learners, isn't this what we're collaborating with and working on at preschool is identifying children ages 3 and under. So because the children under age 5 are learning English and are developing language, and they're learning English at the same time as they're learning Spanish, it's a little different than at the elementary level having a dual language classroom that is, so I just wanted to make sure that you knew we didn't have dual language classrooms in preschool, but that we are addressing the needs of children who are learning 2 languages simultaneously, as opposed to ELL students who already acquired their home language and are learning English as a second language, English language learners. So, okay.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments for either Josh or Laura? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I think that the UMass thing was just an announcement, the vote would be for the preschool fees.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, if you want to all come, say woohoo to UMass, go right ahead.
Woohoo.
Who to UMass, I move to approve the preschool fees.
Oh, I think we should probably talk about it though.
Sure.
Yeah, we do a motion and then we have discussion about it. Yes.
Sorry.
I will second.
Okay, motion's made by Member Levy, seconded by Member Seraphy Cox. And Laura, would you like to present them? Or Josh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so as the preschool fee memo outlines, the current preschool fee structure is not supporting preschool at the level at which we need to support it. We do not have fully funded universal preschool yet. School districts are encouraged by DESE to go ahead and fund them in the ways we need to fund them, which is fees. We currently charge $7 an hour, which is low, on the low average for the state. It's not, actually, it's on the low end of the state. It is slightly higher than the very lowest cost program in the city. A couple of years ago, I came when it was $6 an hour and said we should go to 10. and we got $1. So I'm back to say, we should probably go to 10. It's a big leap. $1.50, $2. I think we need to definitely increase it. Right now, the current preschool fee structure that it's at is bringing in $40,000, which is about half of a teacher. And there are 4 professional teachers, and there are 2 to 3 ESPs per classroom. So I understand that we do need to. No one likes to raise prices. But there's a place where we may need, perhaps you will say we should go ahead to 2, or we go to 1 and then it goes to 1 the next year and it increases in scaffolds over a couple of years. But I think that a $2 increase, we should get to 10 soon. We have many, many ways to reduce the costs for families. For children who are on ed plans, their fees can be reduced or eliminated. And the sliding fee scale is generous.
And I know, Member Stein, that you have a question. I just wanted to add that we use the preschool fee revolving account to fund a variety of different items, including some of our professional staff. And so it's important that sort of as we look at where we are currently and where we are moving sort of in the future, that we make sure that we're having a sustainable revolving account in a way that is both beneficial to the district and our programming, but also takes into account sort of the various needs of our families. And so Laura and I had sort of an external debate around what our recommendation would be, and we both felt as though that $10 would be reasonable and is important as we look forward not only to this year, but future years.
Okay, Member Stein.
Thanks for the explanation and the presentation of the numbers. I had a procedural question. I know we made a motion to approve, and I'm not sure when we made the motion that, we didn't sit. So assuming that I'm gonna.
That's why my hand is up.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest an amendment, propose an amendment, that we raise the fee to $10 an hour. And I actually don't remember who made the original motion.
Member Levy.
Okay.
Sorry. So, Laura, I completely hear you that there are lots of ways to mitigate the increase in cost for the families who need it. I think for me, the thing that feels hard is an increase from 7 to 10. While it's only $3, that's, how's my math? $3 is 40% of 7? No, something like that. It's a big increase in 1 year. And I guess my question is, before we vote to approve that, do you have information about how this will impact the families who currently use the preschool, and or just a little more assurance about the financial assistance available?
Sure. So the preschool chart has been adjusted to align to the newer fee structures from the Department of Early Education and Care. It provides a more generous first level. So many families qualify. I worry about the increase. I know that it's financially responsible for me to recommend to you that it's $10 an hour. And still, I'm I'll worry about it, and we will apply every way to go. There is another piece of that we're going to ask you to create is a way for us to look at how we eliminate fees for children who are free and reduced lunch. And we don't bring in any money for that. And the state offers districts a way to bring in the voucher money that community-based programs get. So there's money we're leaving on the table from the state. And I don't know if our district will be able to meet the licensing requirements for it, but I think we should study it. So I don't want to say there's one way to make this sustainable, but this is our only way to make an effort right now. I don't think it'll bring in much more than $10,000 more if we, it also depends on the lottery, right? Our district, many districts in Massachusetts, and some of the really large ones, they limit the number of sliding scale places. I didn't even bring that up. I'll bring it up right now. I might bring it up next year, but I'm not willing to bring it up right now. We could say we only have this many reduced spots because we can't afford the way we're running this program. So, I don't know how going to $10 will really impact the bottom line, because everyone's name that gets picked out of the hat of the lottery could qualify for 100% on the sliding fee scale, and we bring in no dollars next year.
Okay.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'll accept the amendment to the motion.
Okay. Member Seraphy Cox.
Yeah, when I was looking at the fee schedule that was put in our packet, I was originally thinking that this was the fee schedule we were being asked to approve, which I think was what Member Levy had made the motion on, and what I had seconded. So as I looked at the details more and was listening to your presentation, that it's a recommendation to move from this schedule, which is the existing schedule.
Okay, I do need to clarify that.
Okay.
Okay. So there's 3 things we want to do.
Yeah.
And we may have to retract your motion so we untangle them. I totally get it. Okay, so one thing we want to do, and then you can decide what we want to do first. The current fee is $7 an hour. And Josh and I have agreed the responsible thing to do is to make a significant increase to that. Apart from that, a separate item, the fee scale has been adjusted with the percentage of income that childcare costs families to right size that with inflation and to make that a more just fee scale. That is built on $7 an hour because I don't know what the result of so that is built on the current $7 an hour, but the incomes are adjusted to align to the Department of Early Education and Care to make sure that we are being fair to families. And then the third thing I'm hoping that we'll do is that you'll recommend that we create a working group to study if our district can structure its preschool in a way that we can bring in state dollars in the form of the voucher.
Okay. This is making more sense now. If there was a memo that outlined that, I apologize that I missed it. I think it's helpful for the school committee to know what you as the director recommend. So having that information is really helpful. I hope that Member Levy would accept a friendly amendment to her motion to add what did you call it, Laura, the working group to.
Yeah, I think we should form a working group to study bringing in, if the preschool can be structured in a way that could bring in. I think it will take a year.
Do we actually need to do that though? Wouldn't that be a working group that you would just create or that the superintendent would create? Like, I'm not sure that the school committee needs to vote on that.
Josh is shaking his head, so I'm going to go with Josh.
I think it's a working group that we can form under the direction of the superintendent. And there was, so I apologize if that did not make it into your packet. There was a memo that outlined all of the information that Laura had shared. And so I'm not sure if it ended up making it into your packet, but there were two, one around
We do have it.
I see it now.
Okay.
I
We have
apologize.
it.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that for the public record too, that those details were available.
There's recommended actions
Yeah.
on that first page.
I see it now. Apologies. Okay, yeah, so I think you're right. We don't need to vote on creating the committee, but we would need to vote to approve the updated income guidelines. So I would suggest that as a friendly amendment for Member Levy.
Yeah, do you want me to restate? When I made my amendment, or my motion, I was looking at the agenda, but I can restate the motion looking at the recommended actions, which would be to approve a $3 increase to the hourly rate for the NPS preschool and proportional fee adjustments to the NPS sliding fee scale chart, as well as to approve the updated income guidelines and fee adjustments to the NPS sliding fee scale rate chart.
And then my final, as the seconder, I accept that change to the amendment. And then the final thing was just for Member Levy, and to the, I guess maybe it's a question for Laura and Josh more than anything actually. Would you recommend that we make the full $3 increase in 1 year, or would you like to see it phased in?
So I would say that Laura and I would probably recommend the $3 increase in 1 year. If the committee feels more comfortable having it phased in, then I think an increase even in a sort of 2-year approach would sort of get us to our goal. So I would defer to how comfortable the committee's feeling on that. But I think that any increase would be helpful to our goals and get us closer to where we need to be.
Understood. I won't change the amendment. I mostly wanted to hear your recommendation on that question.
I just have a question.
Stay. I muted you. Nope, stop. Stay, don't touch, just talk into your microphone.
You're using the microphone.
So I just have a question for Laura. I'm just curious if you compared, when you look at the $10 increase, have you looked at the comparison with other preschools in the area that, like you mentioned previously? How does it compare?
Yes. So Hadley's a little bit lower. I think they're at 6. Amherst is at 7. Hampshire Regional, pretty much the phone has been ringing off the hook because everyone is going to their school committees to say this isn't sustainable, we can't make it. So proposals, my understanding from the Hampshire Regional and Amherst coordinators was that they were going to be proposing $1 to $3 increases as well. I don't know where they landed, and I don't know the results, but and the statewide, there's a statewide early childhood coordinators meeting, and there's a spreadsheet going around with the amounts that everyone's charging, which is where I pulled the average from communities that were reporting.
What I also wondered though was preschools, private preschools, like, you know, you mentioned, Nonotuck, Meadowlark, other places that people go.
Yep. So
what's the comparison?
Yep. So that ranges from to the lowest cost family childcare runs around $5.71 an hour, and then up to $21 to $23 an hour. I just got the boards at Fort Hill, Smith College, and Montessori have just met, and one of them will be $20,000 for 10 months, which is just about double what we are. But then, you know, there are smaller programs that will come in closer to $5 to $7 an hour. Your teachers are the most qualified, and the most expensive. The teachers at some of our community-based centers are making $16 to $22 an hour. Your teachers are making much more than that as far as the sustainability of the program goes. That being said, we're offering an excellent education. We're not really offering care hours. So other community-based programs are offering programs that go for 8-10 hours a day at a higher rate because it's a product that is more attractive. Don't need to call a child's education a product, but it is also a business. Those programs in the community are small businesses, just like this institution.
Member Gazy.
So our our motion, Member Levy, is for the whole $3 increase, which is good with me.
Member Goldman.
Thank you. I just want to thank the two of you for the documents that you submitted in our packet. They really lay out all of the background information, the recommended actions, the rationale for it, and is very informative. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Member Stein.
I had a question for Josh and Laura about the working group, and oftentimes working groups can be unintentionally waylaid, or because there's a million pressing demands, and it's hard to get things off the ground. Would it be helpful to either of you, or to move it forward, to have the Budget and Property Subcommittee involved in any way? Even if it's just a place to give updates, like, do you need any assistance, and would that be useful to you in terms of doing the work? I would imagine my colleagues on that subcommittee would, be happy to support that effort. So we don't have to decide anything, but I wanted to put that out there as an idea. If it's supportive of what you're trying to accomplish, that could be one way to do it.
I'll just say, I think the reason it's on there is to make sure that it is accountable and known to you. Some of the things that would need to be addressed in whether or not our district could secure the voucher is the number of hours we offer at preschool. The model of the program would have to meet some guidelines that may indeed need to be reviewed by school committee in its perhaps the structure of it could Josh, help me out here.
Sure. So I think
you'll want to know about it.
So I think where we are right now is sort of in the information gathering phase. I think that what would be most sort of productive is for us to have a working group that presents to the committee an update sort of once we get all of that information together. which likely will not be until late spring, sort of end of the school year, just with sort of all of the pressing demands that we do have between Laura and I. But I think that that would make the most sense because it likely will impact a variety of different things, including potentially some of our spaces and facilities. It may impact our current collective bargaining agreements and may need to go for discussion around the negotiation subcommittee. So there could just be a variety of different sort of subcommittees within the full committee that may need to look at different aspects. But I think that Laura and I have really just sort of started talking about it. And so I think we really need to sort of put our heads together with school staff a little bit more before we'd be able to answer that question in depth.
Thank you so much, and thank you both for moving it forward. And I look forward to hearing more. And like I said, if there's anything we can do in the interim to help, happy to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments for Laura and Josh? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? When you're ready, Laura, roll call. Annie, sorry.
Member Stein,
Yes.
Member Levy,
Yes.
Member Miller,
Yes.
Member Goldman,
Yes.
Member Agna,
Yes.
Member Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Shara,
Yes.
Member Robbins,
Yes.
Member Gazy,
Yes.
and Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you both so much for being with us and telling us about those. Okay, I do not see Evelyn, correct? No, so, Josh, we can go back to you for update on the superintendent search committee, please.
Sure. So the search committee met on February 1st for our orientation. Our next meeting is scheduled actually for next Wednesday. And we are going to have a little bit of a longer meeting because we have Member Levy presenting on anti-bias hiring practices to the full committee before we start the review. Applications are due tomorrow, actually. And according to Liz LaFond from MASC, as of February 1st, we had 2 candidates who had applied. And her plan was to have packets to us early next week after the posting had closed tomorrow. And then we would be meeting. Part of our charge for meeting on Wednesday is to determine what questions we're asking to potential candidates to receive the anti-bias training from Member Levy, and then also to look at next steps around interviewing semifinalists before it comes to you for review. The surveys that are posted on the district website are open, and we encourage all members of the community with which to complete them. That information will be collected and presented to you as a full committee. MASC recommended that we didn't have access to that information as we started the screening process and the interview process. Our charge as a committee is to really look at candidates through our unique lenses. And so we thank the mayor for giving us a very diverse search committee that can do that from multiple angles. And then you as the full committee would use that recommendation, I'm sorry, not recommendation, would use the survey results in your deliberations around finalists. And so it's hard to believe in some ways that the process is moving as quickly as it is. Liz LaFond will be setting up listening sessions with a variety of different community groups, but she hasn't really shared as many details with us yet around sort of the scheduling and what that will look like. One thing that I did encourage is to have interpretation for many of those pieces and translation available for our families so that people would be able to access them to the best of their ability and really have a clear understanding of sort of where we are in the process. And so that's sort of the gist of where we are. And Member Agna, I know that you are with me in terms of the chair and co-chair. And so I don't know if I missed anything before we open it up for questions.
The only thing I would add is that I spoke to Liz also, and she said that she's finishing up 2 searches that she's been quite involved in, and they have some finalists, and so she's going to, as she said to me, she'll be able to be on the ground more starting soon. And so I think that will coincide with how we are moving forward also. And she did say, when she told me that there were 2 applicants, she said that her experience had been that the applications come in really close to the deadline. So we haven't spoken to her since February 1st, so
Right.
we don't know. And she said she would call tomorrow to say how many there were. But you did an excellent job, Josh. Thank you. And I'm the vice chair, not the co-chair.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you both for all of your work on this and your leadership on this committee. I really appreciate it. Any questions or, oh, I see some. Okay, Member Gazy.
I assume that we'll be notified when the community sessions are. I'd like to attend some of those. And so where will how will the community be notified of those? Through the usual school outreach processes?
That's a great question. So I think what I would like to see is actually a variety of different ways that the community is notified. And so we do have a superintendent search tab on the website, but it's a little bit bare bones at the moment. And so in sort of doing some research around other communities and sort of what they've posted, including sort of the members of the search committee, updated timelines, and then I think that we could do some revamping, but that probably won't happen before our next meeting. And then I think through sort of standard, email distribution, using talking points to be able to reach our families, and then potentially maybe partnering with the Gazette around doing some press releases so that there's multiple sources for families to get the information, I think would be really helpful. And so that's something that I definitely will make sure that we talk about next Wednesday. And once Liz gives us the details of that schedule, that sort of will be our approach.
Great. I was thinking about the Gazette. I was also wondering about those morning radio shows that are talk-based about, yeah, I wonder if they would do a community, hey.
I'm sure they gladly would.
Yeah, they probably would invite members of search committee to be interviewed to share, how things are happening. I also think that we should, and we will talk with Liz about this, to have focus groups in other parts of our community other than just the schools, because, for instance, the senior center, I don't know, the places that have residents of Northampton but aren't necessarily parents, because we have found, of course, when we have to do an override, that most of our voters do not have children in the school system. So it'd be great if we could be very inclusive in this process to get all of our residents involved and understand what's happening.
Okay, yes, let's go ahead. Member Miller.
I also wonder, I'm on the search committee, but I'm also concerned about reaching underrepresented groups in our community. And I would want to make sure that there are focus groups in Spanish-speaking communities, in low-income families. I would want to make sure that we have notified people in a variety of languages, and I think those focus groups, so that we can get feedback from as much of the community as possible, is essential. And I think that actually some of that community input is important for the search committee too, not just for the school committee. So I just want to, I'm wondering if families with power should be reached, whatever, can happen to expand the notification about the focus groups.
Thank you for that. Okay, Member Davis, did I see your hand?
I don't know, I was just wondering, are libraries allowed to be, they have meeting rooms and stuff, is that a place that you'd be allowed to meet, or is that a conflict of interest in some way? No?
I think so.
Liz talked to me about using the schools.
Uh-huh.
And I know she had a question about whether she should do every elementary school or consolidate it into one, but I haven't heard back from her about that yet. But, so I think the schools will probably be the places that she uses. And we'll have to book it for Saturday, probably.
Even school newsletters?
Uh-huh, absolutely, yeah.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Thank you. As was talked about earlier, we had a school committee retreat last night, facilitated by the wonderful folks over at the Collaborative. And through that conversation, the Collaborative has a role, or has been playing a role to facilitate the committee through considering how to integrate anti-bias practices into our hiring. And so we talked about how to utilize both their resources and the resources of Member Levy, which I'm really glad to hear is giving a presentation to the search committee. And so through that conversation, the committee and the Collaborative were talking about how we would prepare our rubric and our interview questions for the finalists. So so we have some questions that were developed from that conversation last night, and I'll read these questions. I can also send them as email. Like, obviously not all of these questions are answerable by you, Josh, or answerable right in this moment. But we are, they're in no particular order. So I'll just kind of read them. And then, as I said, I'll send them to you as well. So we're wondering how flexible the timeline is for the process. And I understand that the finalists are supposed to be interviewed during the first week of March. And in terms of our process with the Collaborative, that may or may not be a challenge. So wondering, is it possible to interview them later? And is that wise, considering, timelines, that sort of thing? But I think Member Gazy already asked the question of when are the community forums happening. It was our understanding that the community input is happening now, and as I'm hearing in the focus groups and so forth that Liz has been working on. So one question that we had is, how can we make sure that community input that's being gathered can help inform the rubric that is created by the full committee? Then also we understand that there's a survey that I filled it out, that has gone out to families and community members. So curious if the survey results and even potentially focus group results can be shared with the search committee, not just the school committee, that the search committee could avail themselves of that information as well. And then curious, when will the search committee develop its rubric for for its process. The school committee talked about how it was going to develop its rubric, but when is the search committee going to develop its rubric? And also, I suppose, a question of how are they related or not. And then kind of a very broad question of how can the findings of the recruitment and retention study done by Green River Research inform the superintendent search. As I said, these are not questions you need to answer right now, and I'm sure that Liz, would be a good resource for some of these questions as well. But I just wanted to say that was where the committee's thinking was last night.
I just want to add that was not just those aren't questions for Josh necessarily, but for
they're questions for
Liz
Josh
and
for Liz.
For Liz,
Right. Yeah. Sorry if I didn't say that. I meant that it was for Josh and for Liz. Yes.
So some of those I definitely, we would need to sort of talk to Liz about, but I will say around sort of the timeline. So there is flexibility, some flexibility, but it's sort of a double-edged sword because there are many searches ongoing currently. And so what we don't want to have happen is to sort of extend our process and then potentially lose some really great candidates. It is in some ways challenging because, we don't know how many candidates we will have. And so if we have 5 versus 15, then the process could, the timeline of the process could be very different. And so I think some of the information that we get from Liz, hopefully tomorrow or over the weekend, would inform that. I do know that what she had recommended in terms of developing our questions was that we develop the questions sort of offline and then make a motion when we come together as a group to accept them. So that way candidates don't sort of necessarily have a leg up, some candidates versus others, around being able to know sort of what questions we're going to be asking them as we move forward. But of course, those questions would be available. And then in terms of the rubric, that was something that I would imagine that we would talk about on Wednesday after we've received the presentation from Member Levy and have the ability to come together as a whole again to really sort of hash that out. The other pieces I definitely, don't sort of have direct answers for right now, but I do know that both Superintendent Pearson Campbell and Member Agna had shared, both with ALT and we will be with the search committee, the results of the retention report that was shared. It's a hefty lift in terms of reading, but I know that information will be available to search committee members. And so I do think that there's ways for us to incorporate many of those aspects. And I'm hopeful that we have more than the 2 candidates that we had during our last meeting. So we will just have to sort of wait and see. But what I'm happy to do is during the next, sort of have this be a recurring update for the full committee around, how we're progressing with the superintendent search. And I know that I had sent out with Member Agna an update to NPS All around sort of the process after our first meeting. And we'll be following that up with the larger Northampton community as well. So it's not just our employees and staff. Things are just moving a little quickly, sort of between last week and this week. But
Can I say one last thing?
Sure, and then I'll go to Member Stein. Go ahead, Member Davis.
I didn't see that there was somebody else. I can wait.
Okay, Member
He had his
Stein.
hand up
and-
Thanks for that, and I appreciate the work that you're doing on the committee and that the committee's taking on in a very compressed timeline. I just wanted to put a finer point on a few of the questions and issues that Member Seraphy Cox raised. I would want sort of in 2 categories. Like if we end up not having a very large pool, I would really want the search committee to extend in order to develop a robust pool. We have very few opportunities to do this, and I think we need to do what's necessary to increase that pool. The second thing is around the focus groups. A lot of times when we send out surveys to families or we do these other events, they happen so closely to when decisions are made, it's nearly impossible for the public to understand how they can be made any use of. And with this going so fast, I'm concerned about that as well, whether or not it's accurate, right? The optics of it are, you know, you asked for my opinion and you made the decision tomorrow. You probably couldn't even have read it, right? And so I would really want the search committee to be clear with the community about what and I understand Member Levy's going to help with this, but like, what is the candidate profile we're looking for? How are we screening folks? And then how did the community feedback play into the development of those things? And we're under a really tight timeline, but as much as that can be accomplished, I would be extremely grateful, and I think it would really show our community that we're listening to what they're saying and we're taking into consideration when we decide how we're screening candidates to put on the full committee. So I would just really sort of emphasize those points, and you know, if we're going too fast, I don't want to make a bad decision or a quick decision because we're worried about what we might miss out on necessarily. I understand the pressure; it's a tough bind, right? But I don't know. That's just I just want to emphasize those things. Thanks.
Thanks. Member Davis?
Yes, I'll be quick. I think I'm really thinking a lot about the transparency piece with the public and I always hesitate to whine about something that I don't know how to fix myself, but like the comment about the website that has the tab, that has the search, the superintendent search, that's kind of bare bones or some phrase like that. I'm just thinking about ease of use if somebody quickly wants to get an update, how's it going, and that whole timeline that was talked about. Whenever that can happen, I think it would be great, because I know that people have asked me, hey, how's it going? And if people can get the update on, we're having finalists, this is where the focus groups are, just like quick, and you know, whether it's the newspaper or whatever, but some people are very, what I think very understandably go to the school committee site, and there it would be, just to make it as easy for people to find out what they're wondering about, so that everybody knows what's happening and they don't have to feel like anything's secretive or not happening even. That's all. Thank you. And thanks for all your work. It's a ton of work.
Thank you. So there is a tab, and maybe that's what you're referring to. There's a
Yeah,
tab.
yeah, and he just said something like it's bare bones now, or some phrase like
Well,
that.
so-
And I don't know how to fix that, so that's why I'm not complaining about that. That's what I heard.
Sure. So bare bones may not have been the right choice of words. It has proposed timeline and the full profile of what we're looking for in terms of a superintendent.
Okay.
I think when I said bare bones, what I meant is that what I would like to see and what I think would be helpful for the larger community in terms of transparency is around knowing who's on the committee, knowing sort of what happened from our last meeting, sort of what the action steps are, you know, for Wednesday, you know, once we meet Wednesday, having sort of an update, hopefully by the end of next week, around sort of what transpired and where we're going. So it's not, you know, there's one central location for people to look for.
Yeah.
I think the challenge around that is that, in all honesty, there's not really much of an update, given that we've only had the orientation meeting and the committee hasn't come back together.
Right.
So I think that there will be lots of information to share, both with the school community and then with the larger Northampton community, once we've had our second meeting and we move forward. So hopefully that helps make it feel a little less
Definitely, yeah,
opaque.
yes. Thank you very much.
Member Levy?
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify, because I thought in our meeting last night, we had sort of concluded that because of the timeline and because we don't want to lose candidates to other searches, and so I think the desire was to not slow down, but because of the timeline, what we had talked about was that because we have such a diverse search committee who can bring their perspectives in for the search committee rounds, that we would incorporate the community feedback into our rubric and use that to inform the rubric and the interview questions that we ask. So I just wanted to reiterate that, as I thought that's where we had sort of landed last night, so that there's not confusion around, are we pushing to have these focus groups and the data then incorporated into the search committee's work. We appreciate that there's a very diverse search committee who can bring those, whose perspectives can inform their interview rubric. Yeah. Okay. Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes, thank you, Member Levy, for reminding me of that. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with Josh is that the committee scheduled 2 additional meetings with the collaborative. On March 1st, we'll be working with the collaborative to develop the rubric, our rubric for the search. And on March 8th, we will be working with them to develop the interview questions. So we have scheduled it so that if, our interviews are happening at our March meeting on March 9th, then, we are ready to go. But so I didn't want you to feel like we didn't have a plan for if you're continuing to go at that speed.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Josh or about the search? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much, Josh, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I see Evelyn. How are you? So we can go up to the, hi. So student representative report. Welcome back. Are you ready?
Thank you. I'm currently at the high school right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little choppy, but we're gonna hope.
Okay, so kind of a short report tonight, but the bathroom equity subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of our student union, just put menstrual products into the gender neutral bathrooms. We're also planning on having a donation box to get more menstrual products to put into the bathrooms, and our end goal is to have them in not just the gender neutral bathrooms, but all the bathrooms in the school. Our sophomore representatives on the student union, Frankie Adams-Sternal and Giselle Ohm, are working on getting a school store with merch for students and caregivers to buy, which will fund student union projects and grants. So that is in the works right now. Speaking of the grants, the student union grant cycle is open. This is one of the ways the union supports students. Students' organizations can apply for grants for projects that will have a positive impact on the NHS community. That's all for the update. If anyone has any questions.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? Anything for Evelyn? All right, I don't, oh, okay, thumbs up from Member Miller. All right, I think we're all set then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, so that is it for the main agenda. Future business and meeting dates, Budget and Property Subcommittee, Monday, February 13th, sorry.
4:30? Is that right?
Is it 4? I have it.
I think we decided to have them at 4:30 going forward.
Okay, did I have that backwards?
And the agenda says 4:30, but the agenda for that meeting on Monday it says 4:30, but it's just on here.
On here it says 4, sorry. That's
Yeah,
supposed
that's
to be
okay.
4:30. Yep.
It's posted right, but I just wanted to make that correction.
So
Thank
Budget
you.
and Property, Monday, February 13th, 4:30 on Zoom. Rules and Policy, Wednesday, February 15th, and that is 4 o'clock, yes, on Zoom? Okay. Superintendent Search Committee, Wednesday, February 15th at 6:30 PM, and that is hybrid. Where's the location for that?
Here, JFK.
Here in the community room, JFK. Special School Committee Budget Meeting, Thursday, February 28th, 6:30 PM hybrid, so.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I apologize, it's in the hearing room.
Okay, so Superintendent Search Committee, Wednesday, February 15th, at 6:30 PM, and that is in the hearing room at City Hall and also on Zoom.
Yes.
Yep, okay. And so Special School Committee Budget Meeting, Thursday, February 28th, hybrid, so 6:30 PM here in the community room at JFK and also on Zoom. And Curriculum Subcommittee, Tuesday, March 1st at 5 PM on Zoom. Those are upcoming meetings, and
I think I should point out that if there's a retreat on March 1st,
Yeah.
it's going to conflict with the curriculum subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, so there's also, I think the superintendent search committee meeting on the 15th is going to be at 5 PM. In order to,
No, it can't be, because we have a member, our young member from the high school can't make it until 6:30, so we have to be at 6:30. They agreed to that in the last meeting.
okay, Member Agna, I don't know if you want to.
Well, I think because we have the plan to have the training with you, Member Levy, I think we are going to have to say to the member from the high school that we have to do this training.
And then I did want to point out that we did decide last night to do the retreat on the 1st because it was the date that we could do with the collaborative. And even though we all very much value the work of the curriculum subcommittee, that this is a really important piece of our work as a school committee, and we really need to prioritize planning for the search.
so, thank you for that reminder. So we are having a retreat on March 1st at 6:30? Anyone remember?
6:30.
Okay.
I have it here.
I thought it was 6:30.
6:30 to 9.
Seems like 6:30 is the time.
I wrote 6:30.
Okay.
And then possibly on the 8th.
And then also on the 8th, right, also at 6:30.
I think that one was at 7,
Oh.
just to keep us on our toes.
I
wrote 6.
So the March 1st is 6:30 to 9 PM.
That's right.
That's to develop the rubric. March 8th is 7 to 9 PM to develop the interview questions. Both of those are retreats with the collaborative.
7 to 9?
So March 1st, 6:30 to 9 PM. March 8th, 7 to 9 PM.
Great.
Right.
Okay, thank you for
And-
that.
Can I go back? I'm sorry, but Annie, the search committee meeting is here?
No, it's in the hearing room
City Hall.
at City Hall.
The search committee one?
Yep.
Oh.
I'm happy to contact the student and apologize that we have to go. We do have to have this training, however.
Okay.
And just apologize for the conflict for the member who's from the high school.
And I will send out an announcement to the rest of the search committee. But the other question I have is, what is to be done about the curriculum subcommittee? Now that I have the members all here, do you want to reschedule or just cancel for that month?
I would reschedule, but I see that Member Robbins has her hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 2 hands up.
Member Robbins?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised about this because I'm actually was unaware that this had been a decision that was made, and it's the second month in a row that this committee has been overridden, I guess. But rescheduling it would be very helpful, and if that can't happen until April, it would be really good to be part of the conversation and not find about it afterwards. Thank you.
Do the members of the curriculum subcommittee, are they interested in having a meeting the very next day on the 2nd of March?
No, because we've got a meeting on the 28th already. We've already got 2 meetings that week.
I see, all right, we'll look into it, I guess.
On tonight's agenda, on this evening's agenda, this part we're reviewing right now, it says special school committee budget meetings, Thursday, February 28th, but February 28th is a Tuesday, so is this meeting scheduled for
Apologies,
Tuesday,
it's supposed to
February
be Tuesday.
28th, or Thursday, March 2nd?
It's Tuesday, February 28th, my
Thank you.
apologies.
Thank you.
At 6:30 here.
Yep.
Hybrid, thank you.
Member Stein.
I didn't know if we had, or if we were going to return back to the discussion topics. In the agenda that or did I miss it? Like in the order of things, it seemed like we have, between new business and the upcoming meetings, we had the other topic. And there was something I wanted to raise there. So are we going to?
Yeah, we can go back to that.
Okay, and I can wait till we go back to that. If I don't want to interrupt the meeting talk.
Have we, I feel like, did we get all the meetings down? Okay.
Yes.
Yes? No?
I mean, other than rescheduling the curriculum.
Were we
meeting.
still working on that?
And moving the search committee to 5 PM.
Yeah, are we rescheduling the curriculum now, or are we doing that?
I would love it if we could reschedule the curriculum now.
The search committee is
What time do we usually meet? So 5 PM? The next meeting would be the April 4th. Let's see, what's on the 23rd there?
What about the week of March 13th?
There's a Budget and Property Subcommittee and a Rules and Policy Subcommittee that week. That's filling it up a little bit, but we could, if you had to. Yeah, we don't want to do it before a school committee meeting. I mean, if you want to stick with the Wednesday format, there's the 29th, but that would just mean, you know, you're only having it a few days later for April. So I think let's see, what do I have? Eval on the 6th? We could do it on the 7th, I think.
We have 2 meetings that week. We have the retreat on the 8th and a meeting on the 9th. Right?
We have 2 meetings.
We have 2 meetings every week, well, in March.
Right. And all I really have is the 2nd.
I mean, if we're meeting later on the 1st, and currently the curriculum meeting is scheduled for 5, is it possible to do both, given the difficulty in rescheduling?
Or do the curriculum subcommittee earlier? Can I do that?
I can't do that. That's too much.
Are the next 2 retreats both at the Holly Street Collaborative?
yeah.
Right, those are both at the same location.
Yep.
Thank you.
Could
Have
do
we
a
got as
Friday.
far as we can get?
I think we should take it offline. I feel bad using everybody's time for this.
Take
Maybe
it offline to reschedule?
Yeah, do a doodle poll.
Doodle poll, we're looking at March right now. I think we should decide, just to, you know, we have it right in front of us, and I have my committee members right here. Would a Friday work? Maybe Friday the 3rd? Keep it in that week. That way we're not getting so close to the next meeting of the curriculum subcommittee in April. No? Friday the 17th?
Well, what about, so when are the other committee meetings that are happening the week of March 13th?
There is a Budget and Property Subcommittee meeting on the 14th. There's a Rules and Policy Subcommittee meeting on the 15th.
Budget and Property is the 13th, isn't it?
Of March?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the 13th of February, the 14th.
Thank you. Okay.
What time is the 15th one? Could we hold them concurrently and take our own notes?
That reminds me of Harry Potter, where she does 2 classes at once. I suppose you could, if you wanted to do that. I just, I want to find out what's the date that works best for the committee members.
Yeah, well, Member Robbins and Member Agno, what works for you? Does that work for you?
What date are you talking about?
Wednesday, the 15th of March?
And I don't have the school committee calendar, but is there rules, that's a
Oh,
rule.
you're on rules and policy.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, we shouldn't try the
Yeah.
current,
that's the 15th.
the Hermione.
Okay, what about Monday,
I mean,
the 13th?
what I was gonna,
Oh,
I was
sorry.
just gonna say that if the curriculum was canceled last month, that if rules and policy needed to step aside for curriculum for 1 month, obviously I'm not the chair of rules and policy, so Holly, if you have an opinion.
That's okay with me.
So should we replace the March 15th rules and policy at 4 PM with a curriculum subcommittee meeting?
At 5
That was my suggestion.
Does that work for the curriculum subcommittee?
That would be great.
Gwen says yes.
And and Gwen? Gwen says yes? Okay, great, we'll do it. I'll send it out. Thank you so much.
But at 5 PM, yes?
At 5, you want to do 5?
What time do we usually start? 5, right?
Oh, yeah, curriculum starts at 5, right. Okay, I'll make that adjustment. Thank you.
Can we just clarify so the meeting, the superintendent search committee meeting is
The
for
15th.
Wednesday, the 15th, that is 5 PM, yes?
It is now.
Yes. Yes, so 5 PM and
In the council.
in the hearing
In the
room,
hearing room.
which is in City Hall, which is different than where the council.
Remember we had it when we met with Liz the first time there in the hearing room?
Well, it's actually in City Hall.
Yeah.
In where your office is.
Yeah.
My office is just down the hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, moving back to discussion topics. Member Stein.
I wanted to raise a topic that we sort of talked about a little bit last night. And it's from the Green River consultant report that we read ahead of the retreat. And I'd like to suggest we place an item on our next agenda. I'm just going to read a very short excerpt of one of the suggestions that they made to us. And that would be the item I'd like to have on the agenda. It's the following. This is from, let me see what page this is. Page 88 from their synthesis. And the paragraph, or the short paragraph is, processes between principals, human resources, and the superintendent should be reviewed to identify inconsistencies in communication strategies and job posting decisions to determine which are most likely to yield a more diverse candidate pool, and then standardize those procedures. There's other things tied to this in the report, but if we could begin a conversation about how we would do that review, which subcommittee we might assign for particular work on it. We are, I think, if we're gonna follow this suggestion, create a procedure for the district to follow that would apply to hiring, especially principals, all team members, etc. So I would request that go on the committee for next month so we can begin that conversation.
Okay, so we're not deliberating on this, but Member Levy,
Adding to it,
give it a shot.
I appreciate that thought, and I wonder if we also want to discuss, I know that we have a lot of ad hoc committees and subcommittees, and I see you glaring at me, Annie, but this report is incredibly, gosh, so many words to describe it, but harrowing and also urgent that we respond to it. And I wonder if we want to put together, just sort of to expand that idea, Member Stein, I wonder if rather than taking one portion of it, if at our next meeting, we want to discuss whether we put together a committee, subcommittee, or an ad hoc committee to put together an action plan to address the report.
Okay, we'll add that.
But I don't want to take away Member Stein, because you seem to want to talk specifically about that one thing, which I think is important, given how much hiring we're doing right now. So maybe it's like we discuss both things.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly the best way. I mean, what I worry about is that there's this report was put together 2 years ago now, nearly 2 years ago. And dragging it out to form another ad hoc committee might delay implementation. I think we're seeing some of this work be picked up on by the, thanks, buddy. Okay, I have some visitors. Thank you. But I worry that, we also have the exit interview committee. They're taking up pieces of this. I think maybe it might be easier for us to break it apart and try to work through some of the goals than it would be to try to convene another ad hoc committee that's gonna, I just feel like we're gonna redo another study. Like, what are we gonna, I feel like maybe it's better if we just start pushing forward with some of the recommendations.
But we're not deliberating.
Yeah, we can deliberate all of this when it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Great.
Member Robbins.
Yes, in regards to that, the exit interview group has closely read the Green River Review and are very eager to have that become a district-wide discussion. And one suggestion was to have that be a book study, which would not lead us to really help with recommendations for the interview committee or the questions pieces of it. But we did carve out a lot of the key issues that struck us as being resonant and appropriate. And I think we'd be glad to share that with the larger community, because we have had the time to really delve into it. And it is an amazing report, and it should be something everybody in our community has access to.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else have other discussion topics for the future? Seeing none, we can move into executive session. We will be adjourning from executive session, so anyone who's joining us, we will be going to executive session and will not be coming back into open session. Someone like to make a motion?
Motion to request to enter executive session pursuant to GLC 30A21A7 to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, purpose 7, specifically to review executive session minutes and supporting materials pursuant to the open meeting law, GLC 30A 22F and G, and under Mass General Law, Open Meeting, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded, and the chair so declares. So again, we will be adjourning from executive session. Roll call, please.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Goldman?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Shara?
Yes.
Member Robbins?
Yes.
Member Gazy?
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
And Member Stein?
Yes.
Okay, thank you everyone who joined us this evening. We'll see you next time.
Shut down.